We haven't really talked about the European perspective here. We pulled up WCRS on the Bloomberg. This is just a one-day snapshot of what's happening overnight, really, in G10 FX, isn't it? We're seeing softness in the euro. Is this a dollar story? Is this more concern about political uncertainty in Europe?
I think intraday it's more of a dollar story, but euro strength is diminishing because of the direction in credit spreads, I think. And in terms of the news that we're seeing on a daily basis coming out of Greece, France, and the Netherlands.
I've got a chart here. You mentioned some of what we're seeing in the spread, the yield spreads. This is French bond yield spreads widening amid election uncertainty. This seems to be in the eye of the market's storm at the moment. So we're watching investors getting more nervous about France and, to some extent, getting into some of the more solid German assets.
Yeah, I would say, from a trading perspective, you need to watch euro-dollar this week. If we close the week below 106, you're now looking to sell any rallies into the 106.50, 107.7 range. The issue for us is this. The FX market, the markets are right to focus on these individual high-profile events, like, for example, the French presidency. Yes, and they're right to focus on that as an event risk. If Le Pen loses, the euro is going to rally on that. Our angle, though, and our point of view is that you're selling the euro on any of those rallies because ultimately 2017 is going to produce political disequilibrium across the bloc. You're going to have a range of competing forces, and the risk is that it leads to policy paralysis. So you're talking about medium to long-term reform planning, completing the financial and economic architecture of the zone, boosting growth potential, and so on and so forth. These things become less possible, in our view, after 2017.
So 2017 is not necessarily a year where we see populists take power and take countries out of the euro. It's not that extreme, but it is a year maybe where power sharing with populists and those who are not big fans of the euro threatens reform agenda in Europe.
Yeah, and even weighs on economic confidence in the short run. And therefore, it puts the ECB into a spotlight. What is the poor ECB to do, with this awkward monetary policy stance in terms of the north-south divide or the weak-strong divide within the bloc? Ultimately, we think, in particular because of the lack of fiscal stimulus at the Eurozone level, that's a key driver of monetary policy. But in particular, we happen to think that the ECB will end up or be forced to maintain looser for longer. There are economies in the Eurozone which still have weak growth potential and weak trend growth, and therefore real interest rates cannot rise sharply across the bloc.
Some suggest that the ECB is going to, yes, extend quantitative easing for a period, but then it's going to start the conversation around tapering. Is that's very far off then from what you've said?
We would think that the taper is more of a far-off story, the end of quantitative easing. What we wouldn't rule out this year is a further reduction in the monthly purchases, but we think that there's a reasonably high risk that the current end date for QE gets extended once again before year-end.
Do you watch Euro Swissy? Some people point to that as a real sort of bellwether for political nervousness around Europe.
Yes, in fact, one of our preferred ideas at the moment is long Euro Swiss Eagle 95, 102, 112. So effectively, you're putting on, or it's a little bit more expensive than it was a month ago, but you're putting on a relatively low-cost way of an SNB revaluation trade. Our concern there, obviously, is one of euro weakness, but this persistent recycling issue that Switzerland has, it's not able to export enough capital to offset the current account surplus. And despite what the SNB is saying about the franc being massively overvalued, well, the balance of payments data don't suggest that it is. In fact, that it's still undervalued. Okay. So they're fighting a tough battle, the SNB.